All right. What's the tradition? Do you start right at 5 or do you start?
Right at 5.
Okay.
Because they're mostly tuned in, and that's when the recording starts. Hello.
Hi, Amrita. Good to see you. And you, Akum, and Leto. Hi, Leto. And Elizabeth, Ganga, Diane. Welcome, everyone. Yeah, I'm muttering. I'm not sure I should be saying hi to everybody individually, but why not? Why not? All right, so I'm Swami Chidbrahmananda, and we are going to be reading the Gospel together tonight. And we are on page 840, if you're following along. The day is Tuesday, September 1st. And Sri Ramakrishna is about ready to take his bath. So it says, Sri Ramakrishna was about to take his bath. A devotee was rubbing his body with oil on the veranda south of his room. M came there after finishing his bath in the Ganges and saluted the master. After bathing, Sri Ramakrishna wrapped himself in a towel with folded hands, saluted the deities in the temple from afar. He could not go to the temples because of his illness. It was the sacred Janmashtami day, the birthday of Krishna. Ram and the other devotees had brought new clothes for Sri Ramakrishna. He put them on and looked charming. Again, he saluted the deities. Gopal Mal brought him some food that she had prepared at her home in Kamarhati. She said to the master sorrowfully, "But you won't eat any of it." Master, "Well, you see, I'm ill." Gopal Mal, "That is my bad luck. Please take a little in your hand." Master, "Please give me your blessing." A devotee brought some sugar candy. Gopal Mal said, "Let me take it to the Holy Mother in the Nahabat." The master said, "No, keep it here. I give sweets to the devotees. Who wants to send a messenger 100 times to the Nahabat for sugar candy? Let it be kept here." I love this humility in Ramakrishna there. I mean, he's Ramakrishna, and he's asking Golap Ma for her blessing, It's that honoring in each other. I notice that about the great sadhus, the great avatars. It's just that humility. There's never any pointing at themselves or any expectation of reverence toward themselves. They're always looking and recognizing the best in everyone else. We made that our mission statement at the Colorado Center when I was there. The mission statement was simply to look for the good in others and to fan the flames. And so here we see Thakur doing this. It was 11 o'clock in the morning, and the devotees were gradually arriving from Calcutta. Balaram, Narendra, the younger Naren, Navagopal, and a Vaishnava from Katoa arrived. Rakal and Latu were staying with Sri Ramakrishna. A Punjabi sadhu had been staying in the Panchavati for some days. The younger Naren had a tumor on his forehead. Sri Ramakrishna was strolling in the Panchavati with the devotees. He said to the younger Naren, "Why don't you have your tumor operated on? It is not in the throat, but only on the forehead. That is a simple thing. People have their orchitis operated on." The Punjabi sadhu was going along about the footpath in the garden. The master said, "I don't attract him. He has the attitude of a jnani. I find him to be dry as wood." Sri Ramakrishna and the devotees returned to the master's room. The conversation turned to Shyampada Bhattacharya, Balaram. Shyamapada said, when he, the master, placed his foot on Narendra's chest, Narendra went into a bhava. But I didn't have that experience. Master, shall I tell you the truth about it? It is very difficult to gather the dispersed mind when it is attached to woman and gold. The pundit told me he was called upon to act as arbiter to settle people's quarrels. Besides, he has to worry about his children. But the minds of Narendra and other youngsters are not scattered like that. They are not yet touched by woman in gold. But Shyamapada is a grand person. The Vaishnava from Katoa began to ask Sri Ramakrishna questions. He was squint-eyed. This is an interesting point here, that a person is affected by spirituality in different ways, not necessarily based on the quality of the person that they're in contact with, but really on the quality of what's going on inside their own selves. And this is one of the interesting things about our trip here on this planet, is that we don't have any access to each other's minds. We don't have any access. There's no way of knowing things for sure. When we talk to each other, when I share these scriptures, all I can do is give words, these sounds that come out of our mouths, and then you have to hear them. And then what happens? You project everything onto that. It's the same when you go to a movie. There's nothing at the movie. That you are the movie. Because as that movie plays, there's no movement. Your mind is providing the movement. There's no story because you've just got still pictures. But your mind provides the story. There's no way for you to empathize, and yet your mind provides pictures and provides your memories that you impose on those pictures and those ideals. And this is the reason why our personal practice is so utterly important. That it's not a matter of the quality of the religion that you're following or the quality of the scriptures that you're following. If it's not connecting, a lot of times it can be because you're simply not ready for that place just yet, or because you are unable to hear it. There is an infinity inside of us, a beautiful infinity of love inside of us. And, I remember someone saying that to me when I was a young brahmachari back in the very early days, 26 years ago now. And I remember, closing my eyes and trying to go inward like the scriptures were always talking about. And I was like, I just see sort of a red spongy interior here. I don't really see the infinity that people are talking about. But this is why we practice. When you sit with your mantra, when you sit with the ideal of love within you, when you chant that name of the mantra, it's like combing the tangles out of the self, as it were, out of the soul, and it gets you in your proper center. Not living as the thought of yourself in the mind, in the world of the changing. But it allows you to find the heart, the center where your love comes into the world. When it comes into the heart within you, when it comes directly from God within you, it's the power, it's the energy, it's the heat, it's your life force that's within you, and that goes through the prism of the mind, and then gets expressed by the body on the outside. But that pure love is within you, and when you come inside and you've learned to see the difference between mind and body, and you've become very well acquainted to the point that you constantly see the mind as separate from yourself, constantly see the body as separate from yourself, in that silence that you then have access to, which is behind the mind and behind the body, in that silence, you can hear all of these subtle truths, and you can see all of these subtle understandings. And when you dwell in that space, it takes a very little bit to kindle that beautiful warmth of love inside, to kindle that empathy and that caring. That oneness with things is much more clear to us. And so when we see this situation happening here, where a person's saying, well, that didn't happen to me, why did it happen to you? And Ramakrishna is telling him, he says, well, do you want to know a truth? It's like if you are attached to woman and gold, or lust and greed. Now, why lust and greed? You see, lust and greed are of body-mind. And so if you haven't found out or haven't become convinced that you're not the body or not the mind, then go inside and do that practice, because when you get pulled into mind by these desires of mind and desires of body, because incidentally, you, as the self, have no desire. You are desire free. And if you do the work and go inside and do your practice, you come to understand that all desires arise either from body or from mind, never from you. Never from you. And that is why they call it slavery, why they call it bondage, because when those desires arise that are not yours, but through identity and attachment you take them to be yours, then you are bound to a body and its wants and its desires, and you are bound to a mind with its wants and desires, and you run after them thinking that fulfilling desires is what is free. I get to do what I want, right? We say that for our freedom. But freedom is the opposite. It's to have no desire, to be free of desire. And so that's why Ramakrishna is saying here, it's very difficult for a person who is attached to lust and greed, who basically identifies themselves as a body and as a mind, to actually have that divine experience, to experience that love. It's the reason that it's so important to ask yourself that question, who am I? And to go in and to do this work and to follow the scriptures so that you can sort yourself out and know who you are, and then your love flows more easily. Then you become the person quite naturally, through a transcendence, through a natural process. You become the person that you've dreamed of being, not because you've mastered imitating someone or you've learned to act like a nice person, but because finally that inner self can flow more freely and not get prismed into odd shapes and colors by body-mind when it comes out of you. You know, it doesn't get grabbed by ego and used to be self-serving. So the Master says, and this is why he's telling us, shall I tell you the truth about it? It is very difficult to gather the dispersed mind when it is attached to woman and gold, to lust and greed. The pundit told me that he was called upon to act as arbiter to settle people's quarrels. Besides, he has to worry about his children. See, these are all of those things that drag us out of that heart center and convince us that we are other, that we're different from the nature that we really are. And it's not that you can't have kids, it's not that you can't be married, it's not that you can't do those things. What it is that you have to learn to live all of those roles while knowing your truth, by staying fixed. Established is the word that Ramakrishna uses, to be established in this space behind mind, behind body, from where you can see things objectively. He says, but the minds of Narendra and other youngsters are not scattered like that, because they are not touched by lust and greed. But Shyamapada is a grand person, right? So he's not saying this as a judgment of others. We don't judge others based on their spiritual position, right? We look at the best in them. We look at the divine image within them. And that's easier also for you to do if you have found it within yourself. Then you can see it much easier in others. If you haven't found it in yourself, then it's always an exercise to see that in someone else. The Vaishnava from Katoa began to ask Sri Ramakrishna questions. He was squint-eyed. The Vaishnava, Sir, is a man born again? Master, well, it is said in the Gita that a man is reborn with those tendencies that are in his mind at the time of his death. King Bharata thought of his deer at the time of death and was reborn as a deer. The Vaishnava, I could believe in rebirth only if an eyewitness told me about it. Master, well, I don't know about that, my dear sir. I cannot cure my own illness, and you ask me to tell you what happens after death. What you are talking about only shows your petty mind. Try to cultivate love of God. You are born as a human being only to attain divine love. You have come to this orchard to eat mangoes. What need is there to know how many thousands of branches and millions of leaves there are in the orchard? To bother about what happens after death? How silly. This is a very, also, of course, Ramakrishna is going to make a slew of great points here, but these are particularly good because they're teaching us how to dwell in the moment. This moment is God. And there's a saying that I repeat to myself quite often that you might find helpful. I say, don't let the not here and not now infect your here and now, right? This moment is where everything comes together. This moment is the I am. It is actually God. And at realization, it's actually you. You are this moment. You are the unchanging aspect of this moment. You are a light of awareness that sits still in this moment, always present, never experiencing a past or a future, always present now. And time is the film strip that drags all of this change through you. And so when you are dwelling in self and not in body-mind, you have that distinct feeling. You have this it's not a knowing of it or a describable knowledge of it, because it's just that sense of that which is not changing in the moment, this moment right now, that this moment has always been present. It has always been here. It has no beginning. It has no end, right? And nothing happens in the moment. It's like the still frame of the movie, snapped one at a time, right? And when the mind registers the difference, then it creates a narrative to explain that difference. And that is your Maya. That is your story of who you are that you maintain to maintain your ego, right? We develop this ego to find safety, to find comfort, to find stability in a world that is nothing but a constant, unrepeating flow of change. And so we grab onto things and we build a little picket fence around ourselves, and we say everything inside this fence I'm in charge of. I make those decisions. I'm here. I'm the doer. And everything outside of that fence, well, that's other. We don't worry about it. Right? And so what Thakur here is teaching us, what he's showing us, is that when we become involved in any narrative, we get pulled out of the heart. We get pulled away from that fountain of love that is flowing into us at this very moment, and maybe even lose our awareness of that love flowing into us, unadulterated, unbroken at every moment, in the moment, right? And so to pull ourselves into that space, the shrine of the heart, to learn to sit there and observe mind, and observe body, and there to know that the nature of that space is pure love, pure wisdom, and the very source of being, of existence. It is God. And to know that this moment you are in full communion with the beloved, with the divine, is the source of the love that will allow you to know and to be that person that you have always longed to be, that you've always wanted to be. It also becomes that which combs the soul as you repeat the name of God, because that name of God kindles the moment in you, brings you back to the moment, brings you back to these awarenesses, and it reverberates with the knowledge that might be hidden from you, that you are that. And so when you hear that name of God going through the mind, it's purifying the mind. What does purifying mean? It's removing me and mine from the mind, so that you don't become that self-oriented person all the time. And so Thakur calls this man, this Vaishnava, a petty man, because he was concerned about what happens after he dies. So what does that have to do with anything? Nothing outside of this moment matters. This moment is yours. This moment, your only task in this life is to collect what the divine has provided for you in the space that you're in here and now. Create something beautiful, offer it, and do it again. That's the summary of life. To take this moment, what is around you here and now, pick it up and create something beautiful and give it back to the universe, back to the Lord, back to the beloved, and repeat. What you are talking about only shows your petty mind. Try to cultivate the love of God. Right? You are born as a human being only to attain divine love, right? Only to know that that is your nature, to know that that is who you are. And as we approach the divine, as God, it's that love that grows between us. As we sit there and think of God, and we think of ourselves, both of those concepts are wrong. Your concept of God, wrong. It will never be big enough. It will never be true enough. Your concept of yourself, wrong, because there is none. there is no particularity about you at all. And so to what happens in our practice is that this idea of ourself is sitting before this idea of the beloved, and the name is being repeated, and Thakur says the name and the form can't be separated, so the presence of God is indicated when you chant your mantra. And so what happens is that a love begins to grow between you and this perceived ideal, and that love expands and grows and ultimately envelops both of these partial, incomplete concepts of you and God. And that love that grew between you and your ideal was actually the beloved, was actually the presence of God. And that is where you get lost. That is where you lose your ego self. That is where you lose the contortions that you put love through as it travels through your mind to be expressed with your body. Girish Ghosh arrived in a carriage with 1 or 2 friends. He was drunk. He was weeping as he entered the room. He wept as he placed his head on Sri Ramakrishna's feet. Sri Ramakrishna affectionately patted him on the back. He said to a devotee, "Prepare a smoke for him." Girish raised his head and said with folded hands, "You alone are the perfect Brahman. If that is not so, then everything is false. It is such a pity that I could not be of any service to you," he uttered. He uttered these words with a tenderness that made several devotees weep. Girish continued, "O Lord, please grant me the boon that I may serve you for a year. Who cares for salvation? One finds it everywhere. I spit on it. Please tell me that you will accept my service for 1 year." This is our beloved Girish. An alcoholic, a very permissive life, shall we say, and yet you see this genuine spirituality in him, this beautiful love that he has for the Master, and just the tender relationship that God has with him. Master, people around here are not good. Some may criticize you. Girish, I don't care. Please tell Master, all right. You may serve me when I go to your house. Girish, no, not that. I want to serve you here. Girish was insistent. The Master said, well, that depends on God's will. Referring to the Master's throat trouble, Girish said, please say, let it be cured. All right, I shall thrash it out. Kali, Kali. Master, you're going to hurt me. Girish, oh, throat, be cured. He blows at the throat like an exorcist. Are you not all right? If you aren't cured by this time, you certainly will be if I have any devotion to your feet. Say that you are cured. The Master sharply, leave me alone. I can't say those things. I can't ask the Divine Mother to cure my illness. All right. I shall be cured if it is the will of God. Girish, you're trying to fool me. Everything depends on your will. Master, shame. Never say that again. I look on myself as a devotee of Krishna, not as Krishna himself. You may think as you like. You may look on your guru as God. Nevertheless, it is wrong to talk as you are talking. You must not talk that way again. You see, again, this is that, not just humility, but the fact that your ego self, we love it very much. Vivekananda is kind of astounded in his writings when he says, this thing, this ego, this self, this personality that you love so much, it's just a collection of limitations and restrictions, he says. You're enamored with something that takes from you. It gives you nothing in response. I've looked up and I've lost my place completely. So this is why he refuses. He's very angry at Girish for insisting that, well, you're God, because God is not a particular. You see, a human being, even if it's an avatar, has a particular sense of self from which the whole world is measured, from which the relative world exists. And you'll always notice that the avatars very rarely, and I mean very rarely, ever refer to themselves as a distinct body-mind self. And so to say that to the master, is quite an affront. It's causing him to identify with an egocentric perspective of things. So that's why he says, I can't say those things. I can't ask the Divine Mother to cure this illness, right? Because all of that is concerns of body and concerns of mind. And to place yourself in that sort of warrior framework takes you out of this pure space within you, makes you return to selfishness, actually. Girish continues, though. He says, please say that you will be cured. The master, very well, if it pleases you. Girish was still under the influence of drink, so he was drunk. I really appreciate about Girish the fact that when he gets drunk, where does he go? He goes to the temple. He goes to hang out with his teacher. That just shows when all the inhibitions are gone, what is behind it all. And for Girish, it was a love for God. It was a love for Ramakrishna. Girish was still under the influence of drink. Now and then he said to Sri Ramakrishna, well, sir, how is it that you were not born this time with your celestial beauty? A few minutes later he said, I see this time it will be the salvation of Bengal. A devotee said to himself, why Bengal alone? It will be the salvation of the whole world. Girish said, addressing the devotees, does any of you understand why he is here? It is for the liberation of mankind. Their suffering has moved him to assume a human body. The coachman was calling Girish. He got up and was going toward the man. The master said to M, watch him. Where is he going? I hope he won't beat the coachman. M accompanied Girish. Presently Girish returned. He prayed to Sri Ramakrishna and said, O God, give me purity that I may not have even a trace of sinful thought. Master, you are already pure. You have such faith and devotion. You are in a state of joy, aren't you? No, sir. I feel bad. I have worries. That's why I have drunk so much liquor. A few minutes afterward, Girish said, Lord, I'm amazed to find that I, even I, have been given the privilege of serving the perfect Brahman. What austerities have I practiced to deserve this privilege? Sri Ramakrishna took his midday meal. On account of his illness, he ate very little. The master's natural tendency of mind was to soar into the plane of God consciousness, right? Because when we don't have that attachment, literally why they call it attachment, when you're not holding on to ideas in the mind and desires of the body, then of course you can fly, you can soar in this way, in the spiritual, within your own spirituality, take those poetic flights of love. So it's natural, of course. The master's natural tendency of mind was to soar into the plane of God consciousness. He would force his mind to be conscious of the body, but like a child, he was incapable of looking after his body. Like a child, he said to the devotees, I have eaten a little, I shall rest now. You may go out for a little while. Sri Ramakrishna rested a few minutes. The devotees returned to the room. Girish. The Guru and the Ishta. I like very much the form of the Guru. I am not afraid of him. Why should it be so? I am afraid of ecstasy. At the sight of ecstasy I run away. Master. He who is the Ishta appears in the form of the Guru. The aspirant practices meditation on a corpse. This is one of the tantric practices. When he obtains the vision of his chosen ideal, it is really the Guru who appears to him and says, this is that. That is to say, he points out to the disciple his Ishta, his chosen ideal. Uttering these words, the Guru disappears into the form of the Ishta. The disciple no longer sees the Guru. In the state of perfect jnana, Who is the guru and who is the shishya? That creates a very difficult situation. There the teacher and the disciple do not see each other. A devotee. Guru's head and the disciple's feet. Girish joyfully. Yes, it's true. Navagopal. But listen to its meaning. The disciple's head belongs to the guru, and the guru's feet belong to the disciple. Do you understand? Girish. No, that's not the meaning. Haven't you seen the child climbing on the head of the father? That is why the disciple's feet are mentioned. Navagopal. But then the disciple must feel like a young baby. Master. There are two classes of devotees. One class has the nature of the kitten. The kitten depends completely on its mother. It accepts whatever its mother does for it. The kitten only cries, mew, mew. It does not know what to do or where to go. Sometimes the mother puts the kitten near the hearth, sometimes on the bed. Devotees of this class give God the power of attorney and thus become free of all worry. The Sikhs said to me that God was kind. I said to them, how is that? He's our father. He's our mother. Shouldn't parents bring up their children after begetting them? Do you mean to say that the neighbors will look after them? Devotees of this class have an unwavering conviction that God is our mother and our father. I remember seeing one of the young monks in Hollywood one day was walking around muttering something to him all day. I passed him 3 or 4 times during the day, and he was always muttering something, and I finally stopped him and said, What are you saying? What are you saying? And he says, I'm just reminding myself God is everywhere present and always perfect. He says, my mother is in the hospital and might be dying, and I just don't want to forget that everything is as it should be. That's what it is to fly in the realms of spirituality, to understand the nature of things as they are, and not being pulled into a narrative of good, bad, or right or wrong, or perfect or imperfect, but to stay in a place where you can see the act of love, the action of love in everything that is being done. That's the realized state, actually. In the realized state, you see nothing, but you see the love that is motivating all action, regardless of whether that action, no matter how heinous that action may look on the outside. According to Vivekananda, love is the only motivating force in the universe. And so when we find this space within, the self, behind mind and behind body, that's the way that we see the world. Everything is an act of love. Everything is pointing at God. Everything is bringing us to an awareness of that reality. There's another class of devotees. They have the nature of a young monkey. The young monkey clings to its mother with might and main. The devotees who behave like the young monkey have a slight idea of being the doer. They feel, we must go to sacred places, we must practice japam and austerity, we must perform worship with 16 articles as prescribed by the Shastras. Only then shall we be able to realize God. Such is their attitude. The aspirants of both classes are devotees of God. The farther you advance, the more you will realize that God alone has become everything. He alone does everything. He alone is the Guru, and He alone is the Ishta. He alone gives us knowledge and devotion. The farther you advance, the more you will see that there are other things, even beyond the sandalwood forest, mines of silver and gold and precious gems. Therefore, go forward. This is what we were talking about here, is that as you establish yourself in the heart and your inner world becomes more and more quiet, you become aware of all of the things, how your mind is working, how it relates to the body, how the body and the mind work together, and how you are the clear observer of all of them. And yet the love and the wisdom that you have comes from something even behind that perspective. It's something that you're mining from behind you. It's native to you, but it only comes out depending on the level of me and mine that you are exercising in your life, right? And for that particularity, that's what the body and the mind provide. That illusion of particularity, that illusion that you are only here. But how can I ask people to go forward? If worldly people go too far, then the bottom will drop out of their world. One day Keshav was conducting a religious service. He said, "O God, may we all sink and disappear in the river of bhakti." That's the river of love. When the worship was over, I said to him, "Look here, how can you disappear altogether in the river of bhakti? If you do that, what will happen to those seated behind the screens?" Meaning their women and children. "But do one thing, sink now and then, and come back again to the dry land." Everyone laughs. Yes. The Vaishnava from Katoa was arguing, Master to the Vaishnava, stop that sizzling noise. When butter containing water is heated over a fire, it makes that sound. If a man but once tastes the joy of God, his desire to argue takes wing. The bee, realizing the joy of sipping honey, doesn't buzz about any more. What will you achieve by quoting from books? The pundits recite verses and do nothing else. You see, he's pointing at the real meaning of spiritual life here. That, when Vivekananda says, by the Vedas no books are meant, it's talking about the richness of this moment. Those Vedas were written in this moment. The Bible written in this moment. The Quran in this moment. The poetries of Hafiz and Rumi written in this very same moment that we were in right here. But you see, the seers, they see this moment and they can distill from this very moment the scriptures. This world, this life is a scripture and you live in the middle of it. But if you're reading the scripture as a good novel, or you're reading it from a different perspective, from the perspective of body-mind, then it's philosophy, and then it's it's metaphysics, and it's religion, and it's got its own history and story. And that is never the point. The point is always love. Always love. The one most important thing is love. Practicing love, you find your reality. God is that love, that pure love. God is that noun of love, complete, unchanging, stable, pure. God is the noun, and he has placed himself within you, or herself within you. And you are the verb. You're the one. You take that divine principle of love and wisdom and being, and you let it flow. You act on it. You do everything that you do with that. As a matter of fact, Ramakrishna teaches, Vivekananda emphasizes Holy Mother, even comes in and says the same. That it's not what you do in this life that's important, it's how you do it. To always remember your number one task in this world is love, right? Whether you go to an accounting office, or whether you're a CEO, or whether you're a boat or a bus driver, that's incidental. You go to the office first to love, to care about everybody there, to know their stories, to know what's going on, and to empathize, and to give and to serve. Only incidentally are you the rest. And if we could learn that, life would be a much greater joy, I think, for us. If a man but once tastes the joy of God, his desire to argue takes wing. The bee, realizing the joy of sipping honey, doesn't buzz about any more. What will you achieve by quoting from books? The pundits recite these verses and do nothing else. What will you gain by merely repeating Siddhi? You will not be intoxicated, even by gargling with a solution of Siddhi. It must go into your stomach. Not until then will you be intoxicated. One cannot comprehend what I am saying unless one prays to God in solitude, all by oneself, with a longing heart. Okay. Dr. Rakal arrived to examine Sri Ramakrishna, and the master said to him eagerly, "Come in and sit down." The conversation with the Vaishnava continued. The master, "Man should possess dignity and alertness. Only he whose spiritual consciousness is awakened possesses this dignity and alertness, and he can be called a man. Futile is the human birth without the awakening of spiritual consciousness. All right. That's quite a statement there. That your life is futile, pointless, without finding out who you are and what your relationship is with this world around you. And when you do know, just that knowing will give you the fulfilling life you were looking for. All right. Stop there. Yes. There are a few announcements here in front of me. Saturday the 17th, which is next Saturday, is Karma Yoga at 9:15 in the morning, so come, we'll all be here. Have a lot of fun cleaning up and keeping this place as beautiful as it is. On tomorrow's lecture, we've got Pravrajaka Vrajaprana talking about Holy Mother and us on Mother's Day. That'll be an explosion. Wonderful. All right, so that's tomorrow. Wednesdays at 5. We've got Glimpses of a Great Soul. We're doing a portrait of Swami Sharadananda by Swami Aseshananda, and Pravrajaka Krishna Prana is doing that. So come and be a part of these things. It is your place, after all. A wonderful use of your energy and work to come and support it and to be supported by it. So that's this week. All right. Jai Ma.